get somebody else to pay your mortgage. That's the biggest mortgage hack. No matter what the price of your mortgage is, you can rent it out to cover the mortgage, or even most of your mortgage, you're winning. That's the biggest mortgage hack. And eventually that leads to passive income as rents go up and your mortgage stays the same. It's the biggest housing hack for a first-time home buyer that people aren't looking at.
On today's episode, I have with me Amanda El Hassan. She's a badass realtor here in Livermore and Pleasanton, and I want to talk to you today about some of your successes, some of the things that you've overcome, but I want to kind of take it back and talk more about your real estate journey, and I really want to hone in on the real estate in this in today's episode. Can you tell me about the first home that you invested in or bought yourself and kind of just the journey of that?
So my biggest regret, and I say this all the time, is that my first purchase was not a multifamily unit. So we ended up buying a duet, which is similar to a townhome. It's just connected to one other house, and it was rough when we bought it. We ripped out the carpets. There were so many cats, and we had to even replace the subfloors. It had seeped through the carpets. My point in all of this is that we got a good deal on it. Fixed it up. I'm fortunate enough that my husband is in construction. We lived in it for 2 years while we fixed it up ourselves. And we both had full-time jobs, and we're coming home every night and building cabinets and ripping out floors and painting walls until 1 a.m. for months. And then because we couldn't really afford to have rent and a mortgage and stay, somewhere else while we were doing the work. So we did it ourselves, but we ended up making $167,000 profit after fees, taxes, and everything off of that home in 2 years.
Can you highlight that real quick? How much money did you make from it?
$167,000 off of a profit walking away after taxes, realtor fees. Obviously, I listed it because I'm a realtor, but I had to pay the buyer's agent $167,000 in 2 years. Exactly. Wow. 2 years. We listed it. I'm stuttering. I'm so excited about it. We listed it at exactly the 2-year mark.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. So when it comes to, because I hear a lot of people that say, okay, you sold your property, you take all this income. Did you guys do anything with that $167K profit to save it from taxes, or did you guys end up paying the capital gains tax on that?
No, because there's laws in California about like the amount of money you make, but we slammed it right back into our next property. Like we also saved money, not $167,000, but we also saved some extra money too. So we had an even bigger down payment. So we ended up going into a bigger home in a nicer neighborhood and keeping our mortgage payment. I think it was a difference of like $50 a month because we were able to put so much more money down on the next home. And we also bought another fixer-upper. I mean, wow. That house had wallpaper with roosters on it in the kitchen. And so I've never bought a turnkey home, ever. I've always purchased homes that need some sort of work because you get the better deals. Everyone wants the turnkey home.
So I want to come back to multifamily real estate.
Yes.
So 2, 3, 4
unit
properties. Mm-hmm. Can you dive a little bit into what are your thoughts and opinions about multifamily real estate, and why should people be investing in multifamily?
So for me, it's the biggest mortgage hack. Like everyone now with interest rates the way they are, or this or that, how can I buy down my points? 2-1 buy down. How can I get credits? How can I just get somebody else to pay your mortgage? That's the biggest mortgage hack, right? No matter what the price of your mortgage is, if you can rent it out to cover the mortgage, or even most of your mortgage, you're winning. That's the biggest mortgage hack. And eventually that leads to passive income as rents go up and your mortgage stays the same. And so the other thing is as a first-time home buyer, you don't have to put 20% down. Whereas if you're purchasing an investment property, most lenders require a minimum of 20% down. There are different programs out there. There are loans, of course, that you can qualify for based solely just on the rent that property will make, and we could get into all different loan programs
not confuse
another
the
day.
here,
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna say we could get into different loan programs another day. But the point is that a first-time home buyer, or if it's your primary residence, meaning you're living in it, it's not an investment property, you don't have to put 20% down. So it is a way for first-time homebuyers who, again, usually the biggest hurdle a first-time homebuyer faces, usually, not always, is coming up with the down payment. So to be able to have 2, 3 other units that you can rent out to help pay your mortgage, and that income, rental income, goes towards your qualification. So the lender will look at that. So say if you were to just buy a condo, and I'm going to put really rough numbers out there. Say if you were to just buy a condo, your mortgage would be $3,000 a month. But a multifamily, your mortgage is going to be $8,000 a month. And you're a first-time home buyer and you're like, I can't afford $8,000 a month. I can afford 3. Well, say the other 3 units are each going to rent out for $2,000 each. Well, that's $6,000. And now you only have to qualify and show you make enough income to cover the remaining $2,000 to get that $8,000. So they use it to qualify. So it's the biggest housing hack for a first-time home buyer that people aren't looking at.
So those are all great points. And obviously, if it was more accessible, you'd think, or that if it was that spectacular, more people would do it, which it is obviously spectacular. But if I'm a first-time homebuyer and I'm coming into the market, how do I find a place like that? Because I don't feel like I see a lot of them.
Well, of course, the more traditional route is, can you afford a single-family home? Can you afford a condo or townhome? Where do you want to live? Are they available? It's very situational, but I think if you're looking for it, you will find them, if that makes sense. You've heard of the red car theory, right? You see it, you buy a red car and then all of a sudden you see a million red cars. I recently just test drove a Porsche and for a tax write-off, and the second I scheduled my appointment to test drive it, I saw them everywhere. Everywhere. Yes. So if you're looking for the deals, you'll find the deals. I always say that. But I think sometimes too, it's if you want to. A lot of first-time home buyers, right? It's the American dream. They want the white picket fence. They want that yard. They want that single-family home. Sometimes people don't want to live in a multi-family unit property. Usually they're in areas where there are several other multi-unit properties or apartment complexes, etc. So it's do they want that? Do they want neighbors? Do they want to share a wall? Do they want to be landlords? If you are someone who wants to build generational wealth through real estate, passive income through real estate, your portfolio through real estate, it is a huge missed housing hack.
So let's say that I do end up pulling the trigger. I buy a multifamily. Let's say for me, for example, next year I have enough money. I invest into this multifamily. I get into it, and I want to start bringing in tenants to help me pay off my mortgage. Do you suggest that me, as a first-time home buyer that just bought this home, hire a property manager to help me manage that? Or do you suggest that I manage all the tenants and do everything myself?
I think it really depends on your personality and your experience and whether you want to. I think, in general, as a professional, depending on who my client would be depending on how I advise them. I always advise everybody to explore every avenue and do their research, but how busy are you? Do you have a full-time job? Do you have children or not? Is it something you want to do? Are you driven? Are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? Are you going to go, take care of stuff if something goes wrong, or you're kind of I don't want to deal with that? I think it really depends. Now, hiring out a property management company, they obviously have fees, but sometimes it's worth it. The not having the headache and having somebody else manage all of that, and you're like, hey, this is offsetting my mortgage. My mortgage is now cheaper than I was paying for my studio apartment. Yeah. Take the fees. But some people are like, I don't want to give up that money, and I can easily manage it. I can get a rental agreement. I can interview and vet the people, especially if they're going to live next to me and I'm going to be their neighbor. I want to be the one vetting them, not some property management company.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what you want to do. I know that I have investment properties and I manage them, and for right now, the reason honestly for me is the fees. I feel like I can do it, and I'm trying to build up my passive income, but when I get to a point where I have enough passive income, the first thing I'm doing is hiring a property management company to relieve some of the someone else take on the responsibility.
Yeah.
So I can just live off my passive income and go enjoy my life.
Yeah.
That's the goal, right?
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the point where I'm a first-time home buyer, bought that multifamily. It's been 3 years. My income is raised from 100 grand a year. Now I'm at like 200 grand a year because by God's grace, I made more money, right? And I want to start investing more. What do you think is the best type of asset to invest in? Do you suggest going into short-term / Airbnb, mid-term rentals? Should I try to the BRRRR method? Should I try to fix and flip? What do you think? And obviously it's situational, but I'd love just kind of like a general answer on what you would suggest for the average Joe.
That's a loaded question. I think, again, it stems back to what time you have to commit. So for an example, the BRRRR method, rehabbing and flipping homes, if you have a full-time job and you can't manage that, and it's also one of the most risky avenues to go and usually cost the most upfront money. You have to purchase the home and then fund the renovation. So there's that.
How difficult is the financing to get for if you're doing a BRRRR method property?
Again, we could spend a whole entire podcast talking about financing. There are so many different mortgage products for financing for those kind of properties that people don't think are available, but they come with a much, much, much higher interest rate.
Gotcha.
There's more risk involved.
Even with BRRRR, I would have figured is it possible to get like just a conventional mortgage for a property that you plan on BRRRing, or is that
100%? But then if you're again doing a conventional mortgage, you're pulling out the money and you're getting the down payment, but then where are the funds coming to renovate it? And then you have that mortgage, and that's the carrying cost while you're doing all those renovations. And if you're lucky, you can turn it around in 3 months. Most people take way more than 3 months to flip a property. Where's the market going to be at in 3 months? You know, we've been fortunate for the last few years that the market has gone up, up, and up, but say you're swooping up a bunch of properties and the market crashes, and then you have all these mortgages. So it's a great flipping homes is an incredible career path. It is very risky. It is the most risky. To me, the safest is long-term rentals. Okay, that's the safest. You have the least wear and tear. You have one family in there. Usually you interview, you vet them, you can trust them. But you are mostly sitting, that is like the long-term game. You're sitting on the equity, you're sitting on the fact that your mortgage is going to stay the same and rents are going to go up, and every year you'll probably have a new family and bump the rent up a little bit. So eventually, over the years, 10 years from now, you'll be sitting on a nice, pretty check every month of passive income. But it's not something you're going to get rich quick doing. Short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, you're going to make way more money quicker, but it's more headache. You're booking people in and out. It's more wear and tear on the house. It's more maintenance on the house. I mean, you're essentially like running a hotel. You're almost like a hotel manager at that point. So I really think it depends on what type of investing you want to do. To me, the safest, like if you have a full-time job, okay, you work in tech, okay, which a lot of people do here in the Bay Area. Your company's about to go public this year, okay? So you're about to get a fat chunk of change. You already own your first home. Maybe you want to size up, maybe you don't, but you're also in a 3% more interest on your mortgage, okay? And do you really want to now go and have a 6.5% mortgage? But man, I'm going to come up on all this money and I'm going to get hit hard with taxes. I'm going to invest and put it in something else, maybe out of state, maybe here, and I'm just going to get a long-term rental. I'm going to put enough money down that the average rent in that area covers the mortgage, and I'm going to find a nice little family, and they're going to rent in it, and I'm going to sit, and it's going to be a pretty little tax write-off, and I'm going to defer that money I'm making off my company going public, and I'm going to sit and wait on that equity. And in 5 years from now, maybe I'll sell it and use that money and sell my current home to buy my dream mansion. Maybe I'll buy more because it's really easy to just manage this one family. Who knows where my investing career is going to go, but that is your safest bet and the easiest to manage. You have a full-time job. I'm going to interview them once, say there's a problem, a toilet gets plugged, I'll call a plumber and have them out there in the next 24 hours. It's not hard to manage.
Okay, so to consolidate that information, you're saying that if you're in a position where you're making a good amount of money, you're working a full-time job, you're not doing this thing full-time, probably the safest / best bet is to go in and invest in a long-term property that you might be able to draw some cash flow out of.
Correct.
And then you get that appreciation over time. And then eventually you can scale even retire earlier than just investing in your 401k.
Correct. Or, 20 years from now, your kid's heading off to college and college is expensive and maybe you didn't plan for it as well as you thought you were over the years, or other things came up, and now I have this that piece of equity sitting in this house, and I can either pull a line of credit out to pay my kids' college, or I can sell it and do what I want with it.
Gotcha.
So I think it's smart. I think it's the safest, the least headache, the least managing. Airbnbs, short-term rentals, you're managing more, and then fix and flip. You got to be on the job. I mean, unless you find a crew that you trust with your own life, you gotta be out there managing that.
I want to come back to the investor portion a little bit, because there's one thing that I think we could clarify for the audience here, and that is how to find these properties to invest in. Because we talked a little bit yesterday, and I asked you a good question where it was, okay, when you go into full-time investing, how are you going to find the deals to then invest in? So do you have any advice for how somebody moving into investing maybe wants to buy 2 to 3 properties extra a year? How do they find these deals to invest in?
Okay, so I'm going to break it down really easy and just like some simple points for each one. So we'll start with, let's start with long-term rentals, okay? The safest bet. Long-term rentals, you want to look at areas that are usually within good schools, maybe next to like a laundromat or a college, areas like that, like suburban areas where you're going to have a nice family go into. And just make sure that whatever you put down and look at the average rents there can cover that mortgage. Airbnbs, the main thing you look at is how many people you can sleep. That's how much money you're gonna make. So like ours has 4 bedrooms, 3 full baths. That's what's a deal breaker for me. And it was why I wanted this house. It actually wasn't one of the most updated houses that was within our budget, but it had 3 full bathrooms, and 4 bedrooms. And it had a bedroom and a full bath downstairs. So if you had people visiting with like, say, older parents or whatever that needed to be downstairs. So
Gotcha.
How many people you can sleep for short-term rentals? The more people you can sleep, the more money you're gonna make.
Okay.
Fix and flips. The number one thing I look at, whether you find it off market or you find a fixer-upper on the MLS, is are there enough comps to support the resale value? So if it's listed at $1 million and you need $250,000 to rehab it, and let's say, whatever, 50 in realtor fees, so let's say you're all in at $300,000, are there enough comps for homes in that neighborhood that are similar to that size, similar square footage, that are around 1.3? It is literally, it's not how damaged is it, how does it have wallpaper, is it a hoarder house? It's not. Sometimes the best flip deals are like just homes that are kind of dated. So it's,
well, it'd be great to get a house that was completely run down in a neighborhood where everything else is worth $1.2
yeah, right?
million bucks,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So, but those homes sometimes, it doesn't matter. Sometimes people know that. Sometimes they're going to get overbid or where they're priced. It all matters on what price can you get it at, how much it's going to cost you to rehab it, and are there enough comps that support that resale value.
Gotcha.
Because you could get a great deal or get it maybe $100,000 below all the other, but if you need $300 all in to get that thing renovated and realtor fees and tax and get back on the market, and there's only comps at 1.2, you could sure list it at 1.3, but are you going to get 1.3? Maybe.
Depends on the market too, I imagine.
Well,
so there's a lot of factors, but that's a very basic framework. I like that.
It's very risky. Whereas you're like, if there's enough comps that support it, it's a safer investment. Now, if you get to the point where you got cash flow and it's okay if you lose money on some and you win some on others, fine. But if you're just starting, that would be my framework.
Perfect. And I'm going to let you get onto your realtor step stool here and preach for a second. Now, if I'm trying to find comps, do I reach out to a realtor or do I look on Zillow?
You call me, Amanda L. Hassan, 650-483-4996.
Wow.
And I will help run the numbers for you.
When it comes to running these comps, should I be utilizing Zillow for it though? And why or why not?
I mean, anyone can run. One thing I would say is just don't look at your Zillow estimate. The way they do it is ridiculous. We can get into that another time. But you can pull any. So for an example, You see a home that looks like this needs some improvements, whether that's a lot or a little, and then you can look on the map and look at what's closed within a certain date. You know, you can run it back, you can do your research, but I would still reach out to a local professional to verify and be like, hey, these are the comps I'm thinking, because in the Bay Area, there's hypermarkets, like neighborhoods. It could change street to street.
Yeah.
So if you're looking on a map on Zillow and you're not necessarily that familiar with that neighborhood, it could really, you could mess up goof. You could have a comp that really isn't a comp. And you could be like, man, I could get 2 million for this. And it's like in a gated community that you don't realize looking at it on a map. So I always recommend reaching out to a local professional.